Living Transplant is a podcast that takes you behind the scenes at the transplant program at Toronto General Hospital with the goal to educate, inspire, and fuel your passion about transplant. I'm your host, Candace Coughlin. I'm thrilled to have you join me for Season 5. In this episode of the Living Transplant podcast, I was joined by Kelsey Hanna, an OR nurse and mother who went on a journey of health and wellness to lose weight to save her mother's life by donating a portion of her liver to her. We talked about her journey of self-reflection, empowerment, dedication, and what it felt like to juggle life while the clock ticked down, getting closer to her mother needing that gift of life of a liver transplant. We were later joined by Chantal Wiggins, a transplant coordinator at the Ajmera Transplant Centre in the Living Donor Liver Program. We spoke about the processes that donors have to go through to ensure their health and safety, memorable moments in her career, and what it feels like to get to be part of a team that truly saves lives. Please enjoy. Welcome back to the Living Transplant podcast. I am so thrilled to have Kelsey here with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said, my name's Kelsey. I am 35 and I am a nurse in the operating room and a mom to two boys, 5 and 9, and wife to my husband. And I donated my liver to my mom, and it was quite the experience.
Amazing. So if you're comfortable, we'll jump right into that. So you stated that you donated a portion of your liver to your mom. Can you bring us back to when your mom's health started to deteriorate and you found out that she would need a liver transplant?
Well, it took a while to actually learn that she would need a transplant, but at first it was just basically her blood work was off and she wasn't feeling well. Basically thought she had like flu or something like this. And she had actually gone to Vegas with a bunch of her friends. And while she was there, like she felt like she couldn't eat anything and like just was really drinking, like had no energy. And then by the time she got back, she like woke up 2 days later and she was yellow.
Oh,
yeah. And at that point, she was really, really sick. And we brought her into the hospital, and it like really quickly unfolded that first like week that she was admitted. Like she had her biopsy and everything right away. They had already consulted a hepatologist and she had that appointment set up, but she didn't even get to the point of being able to wait for that appointment because she ended the hospital so quickly. Yeah. And like it only had happened like a couple months earlier that she had slight changes in her blood work, and it progressed extremely quickly.
and so being a nurse yourself, what was that like to have that knowledge of the healthcare system and you know you're always faced with those emergencies in your professional life and now you're faced with it in your personal life?
Well, scary and hard, just like it is for everybody. And also like so thankful that I had some of that knowledge, because I can't imagine going through what we did without having any of that, because it it is so hard to navigate. It is. And like thankfully your team has been very good. But that, getting to that part, there was a lot of just chaos and misunderstandings and just a lot of the time being forgotten about, really. Like is our experience a lot of the time, and like just having to keep pushing and advocating for my mom to get the answers that we needed and to get things moving so that we could help her. I felt like, as well as a nurse going through this, I was wishing ignorance is bliss, like I wish I didn't know some of the things that I did know, because
Right.
it scared the crap out of me, basically.
Yeah.
And just knowing what that looks like end of life, going through liver failure and those kinds of things, made it very scary.
So talk to me a little bit about that chaos. You know, you're thrown into it and she goes from having relatively normal blood work to now, in the thick of it. How did you manage that and what was that chaos going on around you?
Well, it was just a lot of, taking it day by day because, we would jump from like one person telling us the worst case scenario to the next person saying, "Oh, like, this happens to a lot of people and over a couple months we find that they get better." And then other people saying like, "This is not on a good trajectory, like you need to start thinking about transplant and this kind of thing," like, like worst case scenario. At that time was for her because otherwise she was completely healthy. I knew, because of how quickly she got sick and how like in her blood work, her numbers were quite high and bad quickly. And one of my family doctor, she just, kept saying to me, like, because we got the biopsy relatively quickly because she got so sick so quickly that we knew that it was NASH. And everybody who had dealt with her basically had thought that it was going to be autoimmune. She she did have arthritis that was of an autoimmune nature, so they figured, that would be par for the course. And just how fast the disease was progressing, it just really seemed like that was going to be what it was, but it wasn't. And so my family physician, she just said, "I've never seen somebody get so sick so quickly with NASH." And like my mom, as soon as she found out, like she was perfect in terms of her diet and what they wanted her to do and everything, but it just kept getting worse no matter what. So my mom at the time was watching my, 4 and 8-year-old, because I'm a nurse and I work nights and all over the place. And within 2 weeks, she wasn't able to. So like I had to change all my job. And at the same time, I was thinking, if this is the case, I was like, there's no way I'm not a match. That's always what I thought. So I was like, even if it is worst case, I always just kept reminding her and just like reassuring her that I would be able to donate.
So you felt like you knew
Yes.
if she needs it, it's me.
Yeah. Well, I've always been very, very close to my mom, and we're like two peas in a pod, like I was like, there's no way. There's no way I wouldn't be a match. I didn't realize all the hoops and stuff that I would have to jump through.
Right,
I'll
right.
say that. And I didn't realize also like it's so unlikely to be a match, even if you're in the same family. Like I thought, I'm her daughter. Like I was inside of her body at one time. So this is gonna be easy, was what I thought, but it's not the case.
It's not the case. And shockingly, often, spouses are often matches, and anonymous donors are matches, and it's always amazing to me when people who are completely unrelated are a better match than
Right?
someone who's related, right? It's fascinating. Yeah.
Like as soon as I found that out, I was like, oh God, like made me very nervous. But I had this feeling, my mom had this feeling that it was gonna work. And I think like also just having that positive outlook, no matter what, even if it didn't turn out to be the case, helped us along the way.
Right. And for people who don't know what NASH is, what is NASH?
It's non-alcoholic fatty liver that turns into liver failure, basically.
And so for her, was there an explanation of why it happened so quickly?
No, not really. Like it's basically, they said that in the biopsy, they would be able to tell if it was like autoimmune or if it was due to medication, because some people that's the case. Um, and so in her case, it just happened to be that that's what it was.
So talk to me about, that shock. You're in hospital, you find out that this is what's happening to your mom. How quickly did it escalate to the point where you knew that this was a life or death situation, and how did you react to that?
Well, there was, like I said, originally when she was like that first hospitalization with liver issues, there were people that told us, that it could go both ways. It could just get better over time, or it could not and get worse. In her case, it got worse really quick. For this disease, like there are a lot of other like liver failure and such that, it can be very quick. If it's acute liver failure, for example, it can be days or weeks. In in this scenario, it was only a couple months, but usually people who get this diagnosis, they have many years after this diagnosis till the point where they would need a transplant. Some people, they change their lifestyle and they don't ever need transplant, right? Like their
Right.
liver, is, enough keeping them afloat to be
Mhm.
able to keep sustaining them. But in my mom's case, even though she did all the things that they had said to do, it just kept getting worse and worse.
So at what point did you find out that it was time that, she was going to need a liver transplant?
So the first like hospitalization happened in October. And then by January, they were starting to do the workup for transplant.
And so when they did the workup for your mom, you said there was conversations about, potentially having a living donor.
Yeah.
How
Well, I
did
had done like all the research and stuff into living donation and that to try and prepare. Although I didn't find that there was enough information out there to prepare myself. Even, what you guys have on your website, I was like, I needed more. If I would have had more information, it could have gone even quicker and would be better for my mom overall because she just got sicker and sicker as they were trying to get me ready to be able to donate. And it's also hard because it's like you don't start the process of testing the donor until the recipient's on the list.
right?
There's all this time in between that you're just waiting and you don't even know if this person's going to be a match. And they only have so much time in the case that they do need a transplant, right? So it's very nerve-wracking for sure. So that's why I was trying to do everything and anything to be prepared as much as we could. So one of the things that, like literally, I put my application in on the day that she got on the list. And I had looked at everything in terms of what your requirements are and such for being a living donor. And it seemed as if I was in, like I was good. One of the requirements was having a BMI of, it said 35 or less. And I wasn't, so I thought I was good.
Right. Right.
Then once I had talked to them, they literally contacted me the next day after I had applied and told me that my BMI was too high. And
Oh,
that really what they were aiming for was less than 30, which
okay.
is a lot of weight. It's like 50 pounds.
Wow. So you're all prepared mentally to get this call and they say, let's start the testing. And they call and say, we're not ready yet. How did you start a weight loss regimen? Like what were the thoughts in your head about this?
I found out 2 days before I left for vacation to Disney World.
Oh my goodness. Of all the places in the world.
I was in Disneyland or Disney World for those, I think it was 10 days that we went. I lost 10 pounds
Wow.
because I was like, this is happening.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I ended up losing like 65 pounds before the surgery.
Oh my goodness, Kelsey.
In May, and we had our surgery August 16th.
So you lost over 65 pounds in 3 months.
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
A lot of the time when donors are above a certain BMI, they'll do these shakes. But I had already started at that point before I actually even talked to the physician or anything like this through the living donation program. And so I was just counting calories, and I had already spoke to my family doctor about starting Ozempic to help with the weight loss as well. And I was like extremely strict. Like I would never normally diet to this extreme. And obviously this was a very life or death situation that, motivated me to do this, but I would never recommend this for anyone. But like I was eating originally, I had started with about 1,200 calories. And then when I spoke to the physician with the living donor program, they said that I could go even less than that. So I was basically eating between 500 and 1,000 calories all through that time.
Wow. So, that's a huge life change as well. For a lot of us, it's hard to just like cut out TV evening snacks, right? Let alone, change your life completely while you are a full-time nurse and a mom of two probably very active children.
Yes.
How did you maintain all of this? And I guess the question would be, why did you do this? What drove you to do this?
To save my mom's life. Sorry.
Take your time.
Like you don't know what you can do until you're put in that situation.
Mhm.
Crazy how motivating, you know?
Yeah.
Especially like my mom, like she's my person. So couldn't do anything else but think about her. But it was very hard because like it was so stressful all the time because she was so sick. And yeah, like I had to change my jobs completely because I had nobody to look after my kids. I also for a long time even couldn't like find regular daycare. Um, so yeah, it was very stressful and tough time. And thank God for my husband and my family and everybody just like supporting me. And especially like one of the new jobs that I got, uh, the girls because then I was working like different hours and with a new set of nurses in a different operating room. And they were so supportive, even though like I had just started working there, and I didn't know the people for very long. And they were just so kind and so supportive and helpful. Like if I needed like time off to go to an appointment with my mom or like any of these things, they were like, whatever you need, we're there.
Wow. So, your mom is managing, and you two are in that waiting period, which is, I always say, the hardest spot to be in is the waiting zone.
Yes.
Um,
Oh my, it was so so hard.
yeah. How did
Yeah.
you and I guess your mom manage that wait to see if it was going to be you, or how her health was being maintained?
Um, well, it was like, thank God that like we have a very close relationship and good relationship because we really just leaned on each other and our family, you know, and we just kept saying to each other, it's going to work. And it did. But I was walking 5 kilometers slash running by the end. I was in better shape um, every day, also to help, decrease the amount of calories that I was going in, and that part was hard because, that takes an hour and a half or whatever of your day. That was an hour and a half I never had taken before and
Right.
really don't have when I have 2 young kids. And so literally basically my kids were putting themselves to sleep every night so that I could go and do that. And like that, a 4 and an 8-year-old, you know what I mean? Like my 8-year-old would go and he would read the books I just told him like how appreciative that I was and how I wish that I could be there with them, but that this is why I was doing that and taking that time
Mhm.
to do that. And they were so good about it. And they were so like, sometimes, if they didn't want to go to sleep right away, they would come and they would literally sit on the floor in our basement while I was on the treadmill
Oh,
so that I
wow.
would finish and mommy could come upstairs with them. But they would go, they would put on their pajamas, do their teeth and all this stuff, and like my older son, he would help with his brother and, yeah, and that was hard, to not be there for those moments because as a mom, you love that bedtime time where you're winding down and, doing stories and so it was hard. Like that was a sacrifice that I felt was really hard. And, I would take, maybe one day a week where I would try to get that done during the day, even with them, like do that 5 kilometers in the forest or something like this, because we have like some trails around our house that the boys love going on. Just so I could get that like, bedtime with them. Or on the days that my husband was home, he would do that with the kids while I was doing my workout. But yeah, like I like even like prepping food and stuff like that I didn't normally do before that, I put myself and my health at the bottom of the priority list. But now I have the very top.
Yes. What a switch in mentality to have to do that, right? Because
Yeah.
being a mom, you always put everything else before yourself. And, now having to think about your mom, she's now the priority, and which means you have to be the priority, right? And how did your boys feel? Like, did they understand what you were doing? I guess maybe the 8-year-old might have understood a little bit more than your 4-year-old.
Yes, definitely. And
Yeah.
I tried to explain in very simple terms, especially my now 9-year-old. He's like very squeamish. So anything like blood, anything, he's like, oh my God, we can't talk about this. And like he'll
That's
literally
amazing.
yeah, I had to be very unspecific about what was going on, basically.
Mhm.
Um, but I ended up being in the local newspaper and stuff like
Oh,
this, and
wow.
my kids thought that was pretty cool, and they like my nieces and nephews, they would say things to me like, "Thanks for saving grandma," you know.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that's very motivating too.
Mhm. Wow. So when you got to that point where you had lost the amount that they told you to, and you had completed all of your testing, what was it like when you got that call to say you are eligible and you're compatible and this is going to happen?
Oh, it was one of the best days of my life. It was pretty incredible. Yeah, and my mom was out shopping at the time, getting groceries, so I didn't want to tell her in the middle of the store. So I waited a little bit. Um, but like so and I was like a ball of tears, right? So
Must have felt like such an accomplishment to have worked so hard and to now know that this is something you could do.
yeah, but at the same time, you're still nervous, you know?
Right. Yeah.
You're not on the operating room table yet, right?
Right.
What can happen between then and now? And like I
Yes.
gotten strep throat like a couple of weeks like before they told me that I was a match, basically. And so I was like nervous, like, was that going to be an issue? And uh, things like that, that it's just so many working parts. And then even just my mom had gotten so sick right before the surgery. And so we were afraid they were going to say she can't have it. Like she's too sick. But it was like literally just like, hold on one more week, you know? And it was credible, like how fast she got significantly better after.
Can you talk to me about that last moment before you went into surgery? Did you talk to your mom right before you went in?
Yes. Like you have to go there super early in the morning. And I told my mom, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna come wake you up because I gotta like come and say goodbye before surgery. So yeah, like my dad came with me because we had to travel to Toronto, and my aunt as well. And so we all went in super early in the morning, and I took a picture of us like right before. And like my mom was just starting to get a little bit more clear because of like medications and such that they had given her while she was in the hospital. Like she knew what was going to happen, but you'd bring her to the sink to wash her hands. She wouldn't know what to do. Just like, she just was not herself, obviously. But she knew that what was happening.
And then you went into your surgery first, and then your mom went in next.
And I went over to day surgery and they got me all ready and brought me in. And oh my God, I was so scared. Even being like room nurse, like I literally help people go off to sleep for surgery.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the mess. Like I was good right up till they put me on the operating room table.
Hmm.
And I was scared. I was very
Yeah.
scared. And I was like shaking and crying. But they were so good. And like everybody like reassured me and like came literally all around the operating room table. And I just remember them saying, okay, you're gonna start to feel tired. And then that was it.
And so the moment that you remember first, do you remember what it felt like to know that you had done this and that your mom was okay?
My memories are so foggy. Like I don't remember like when they first told me or anything really. Like it wasn't until like a couple days later and that I saw my mom that I really remember. and she was up and getting in her wheelchair, and I was just a big lump on
Right.
the bed,
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
coming over and seeing me, and I was like, oh my God, I feel awful now. I should come see you. I'm sorry.
No, that's how it goes. We get a nice new organ, right? We get a healthy organ, and we now feel like the best sometimes for us, the best we've ever felt in our lives, right? Because we have your beautiful organ. Whereas you guys are going from being incredibly healthy to now having lost something, right? So it's true. We feel like superheroes. We're like, woohoo, let's go. Life is amazing.
I was like, you're so tough. I'm not.
And so how was recovery for you?
Like recovery in the hospital, like the first few days, it was very painful. Um, and which I already know, don't react well to like narcotics and stuff like that, which is mostly what they use. And also, I can't have like NSAID medications because of medical history for myself. So that's like one of the medications that I couldn't take to help. And so the first like couple days, they were trying to give me medications to help with the pain, but because they were narcotics, it would constantly make me like my breathing slow down and or try to stop and my would go down, and then they would have to give me Narcan, and then I would have crazy amounts of pain. And
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
that part was rough. um I had like similar situations previously, like I just like I guess I'm very, very sensitive to the narcotics, like making my breathing slow down, but narcotics don't work necessarily very well to control because they have to give me such a little dose because of my breathing not great, which is not good for you. So yeah, that was very challenging, and I had some pretty crazy abdominal pain. I basically felt like a Charlie horse that just would not give up and just kept like there was no stopping it. And it was just holding on. It wasn't like you could, push something and then it would feel better. Yeah. And especially if I tried to move at all, it would really like just grip into my abdomen. And so yeah, that was rough. And so I had asked for muscle relaxant, and that made a big difference actually. So I had to go on that. I think that was like maybe a day after. And like they had tried to get me up, and I was like screaming and hollering, and yeah, it was rough.
You go through this recovery process in the hospital, and it's rough, and you eventually get back home. You have two little kids who have been probably anxiously waiting for mom to get back.
Because I had to go to Toronto. And they want you to stay around the area for a little while after surgery. So I think I was discharged like maybe a week after, something like, or even 6 days, I think. And then I stayed the next week almost in the Toronto area. So I was away from the kids for a long time for sure, which was my husband was at home here taking care of them. And he did so good though, thank goodness. And like others were around and that kind of thing to be support, and his parents, because it was extremely stressful for him as well. Like he was terrified.
Right. The
And
love of his life is undergoing a surgery that is not necessary for her. And
yeah,
how are you and your mom doing now?
uh, we're both doing pretty well. Um,
Mhm.
I have actually been like sick ever
Oh
since
no.
home because of my kids, probably. But like 3 weeks after I was home,
Mhm.
like out of surgery, 3 weeks, I got strep really bad
Oh no.
and ended up back in the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And like fevers and vomiting and like not things you want to be doing after you've just had a major abdominal surgery.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
You don't want to use those muscles at all.
No, it did not. And like coughing and, all the things you're not supposed to do.
Right, right.
So I went on antibiotics for that and just took forever to get better. And because I was already feeling, pretty lousy because I just had big surgery. So yeah, tough and rough and just super useless and just, a lump on a log for many weeks because of the surgery. And then on top of it being sick. And God for my husband, he did all the things like, the cooking, the cleaning, the taking care of the kids. And like, yeah, he was just incredible. And, just putting up with me and my demands.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot
Of course, yeah. So I have to ask you, I ask a lot of donors if, you're looking back on all of the things that you had to do to get to where you were, to donate to your mom. There's a lot of, difficult things that a lot of people probably couldn't do. And then post, all of the recovery and time away from your kids. Would you do it again if the circumstances were the same?
oh, there's no doubt that like we did the right thing.
And your mom, she's doing well, and she's
had some complications, like having like some issues with rejection mostly. And because of that, having some issues with her blood sugar because she has to be on a lot of steroids and stuff. But like night and day difference in terms of how she feels, and like she can eat food tastes normal again, and like, yeah, like huge difference in her quality of life for sure. Like it's like I just keep telling people it was honestly like seeing a miracle in front of your eyes, how like quickly she got better and like just felt okay even, like it's one thing to feel like really well and healthy, but just to go so sick that like actually my post-op with my surgeon, he said it was like it's like a resurrection. And I was like, that is exactly it. It is. It's incredible. It gives you so much like hope for like people and science and just like our healthcare system. Even like as a nurse that I felt I doubted a lot. Like we're so fortunate and lucky to live where we live and all those things, that just like changes your perspective in so many ways.
amazing. Kelsey, one more question before we bring Chantal in is, do you have any advice that you could give to people who may be going through similar health battles, or someone maybe who's considering becoming a donor to someone, whether it's somebody they know or an anonymous donor? Do you have any final thoughts you'd want to share with them?
Well, I would say that it might surprise you, and that it seems so daunting or so huge, but then when it's over, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And like honestly, for me, even as a nurse, I was like, these people who are donating anonymously, like that just seems wild to me. But now that I've done it, I can see why people would do it. Like the change that it made in my family, in my mom's life. Like, recently on one of the living donor support groups, there was a girl about my age. She was talking about her mom who was very sick. And when I was going through it, that's what I needed. It's like, even though my mom was getting sicker or things were whatever, and just you don't know, and it's just so nice to have somebody just to tell you just to hold on because it can get better. And it's hard to have that positive attitude when you see like your loved one suffering, so just have a little hope that hopefully things will turn around. And I think that positive attitude really helps even through all that darkness and all that heaviness.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate sharing your story, and of course for what you've done for your mom and for your family.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope that I, gave a good message.
Wow. So now it's my pleasure to welcome Chantal Wiggins to our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I've been a nurse since 2004. That makes me feel very, very old, but proud to say that. And I was born in Ottawa, and I eventually made my way to Toronto. I've been here for 12 years now. I have two children and a husband and a doggy, and I've been at UHN. I'm going in my fifth year.
How did you get into healthcare? Was it always something you thought you would do?
I actually always had this calling to get into healthcare. It sounds kind of funny, but it's prevalent in my family. So I have a lot of generations of nurses and doctors and people who are in the healthcare industry. And since I was a young child, I would always say, "Oh, I'm going to help babies at Christmas." This was my line as a
Oh,
young person. My mom reminds me. Opportunity came up at UHN as a living liver donor coordinator, and I thought, wow, this kind of mixes everything that I've done in the past. But before that position opened, I really didn't know a lot about organ donation. I never worked in transplant. So a lot of people who work in transplant have worked for many, many years. So it was a huge learning curve. But the team was amazing. And yeah, I was ready to just dive in and learn and be challenged again. So that's where we are now.
incredible. You talked to us a little bit about jumping headfirst into this role and what a learning curve. So, can you talk to us a little bit about the process that you do with living donors like Kelsey from the moment that they would step forward and say, I want to do this?
Yes, so on our website, we have a lot of wonderful information, and there is a 12-page document that you complete. It's a very thorough health history, and we also request all potential donors to submit their blood type, which is very important. And they can do that by, showing proof of if they've ever donated blood, or they might have to go to their family doctor, or if they have any obstetrical records as well. And we review it as a team. So myself, and there's another coordinator in the office, and then we have a medical director and a surgical director. So we review these applications, and we choose the best donor for the potential recipient. And we start that donor and we call them, we make a phone call and we go over all their health history, and we do some education, and we talk about expectations, supports, resources, making sure that they do have a sense of what they're about to start, because it is a very difficult process. So there's a lot of appointments involved, time commitment, emotional, and can be quite stressful, and depending on each situation. And we just want to make sure we have these conversations ahead of time. And then we book preliminary imaging at Toronto General. So we have donors complete blood work, chest x-ray, electrocardiogram, and a CT of the abdomen and an MRI of the abdomen. Those are kind of the basic screening. And they also have a lot of appointments with our team. So they will meet all the members of our team, so that their information can be reviewed in fine detail, and also that the surgeons and physicians can go over the possible complications, risks, and benefits involved in surgery. And this whole process can take anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to complete. It really varies because on people's schedules, on timing, and we do review each case quite quickly, but there can be delays for other reasons. And then we would let the donor know if they're a suitable match. So what we're looking for is the anatomy of the liver is safe to donate, the size of the liver is appropriate, and the health of the liver. So we're looking for any concerning findings in their blood test and in their imaging. If there is something concerning, or if it's just not suitable for donation, then we explain that. We will call them and explain. And obviously that's a very disappointing, beyond disappointing phone call. But we try to explain the reasoning. And then if there is any follow-up that is needed, we will organize that or send it to their family doctor. And it's about 2/3 of people who are excluded. So it is common. And most times it's anatomy or the liver size. Those are the two biggest reasons why people are excluded. If they are a match, then obviously that's usually a very exciting phone call, and then we move on to the pre-op phase, which is many other appointments. So psychosocial appointments, anesthesia, medicine consultation, and a lot of education with our team to start preparing for the surgery day and making sure donors are prepared to what to expect, what supports they need, and how they will recover at home. And then once we get to the final phase, we book that surgery with the donor, and we never force a donor to go to surgery. So there's never any judgment. And we say from the beginning, please let us know if you're not comfortable, if you need to press pause. If they're comfortable moving forward, then we book that surgery, which is a big date, and then we let the recipient team know as well, and then they start preparing the recipient. The donor and recipient team are completely separate, so we start preparing, for the surgery, and then the surgery occurs, and it is a major abdominal surgery, so it's a full day of being in the operating room and recovery room, and then this donor will remain in hospital for about 5 to 7 days. It can vary. And then we have long-term follow-up for our donors. So we always ensure that they are followed very closely, especially in the first year, but even beyond. So our team is following donors for 5 to 10 years, making sure that they are doing well, if they have any concerns or questions throughout the stages of life as things change, and that they have the proper follow-up for blood work and any imaging that may be needed.
Amazing. And thinking about that sci-fi part of it, when you talked about liver size, and that's often a question that I actually get from people is how much of your liver can you donate up to? And if somebody is smaller, would they just take a smaller piece of the liver?
Yes, so there's 3 different sections that can be donated depending on the recipient. So there's a left lateral section, which is a small sliver of the left lateral lobe, and that's usually donated to pediatric recipients. So very small piece. It's usually around anywhere from 20 to 30% of the liver. Then there is the right lobe, which is donated for adult recipients, and that takes up 60 to 70% of your liver. So it's the full right lobe. And then there is occasionally a full left lobe. So a full left lobe would be for an individual who has quite a large liver, and then the recipient is maybe smaller, petite. They don't maybe need such a big piece of the liver, so they would use the left lobe.
Okay.
But I would say it's more rare.
Okay. So most people would donate, 60 to 70% of their liver to the recipient.
Correct. Yes. And then it takes 3 months for the liver cells to regenerate, and then those cells will grow, and you cannot donate again. Some people ask that.
And so why can't you donate again if your liver is growing and regenerating itself?
So it's more the surgical aspect. So internally, there are surgical clips. They've had to surgically remove that piece of liver. So there's a lot of things going on in the liver.
So thinking about Kelsey and the other donors who you have walked through that process with, from initially getting the application to then finding out that they're a candidate and they're eligible to donate to their loved one, how does it feel when you get to make that call or let somebody know that it's a match?
It's wonderful, and most people are very surprised or they're in shock. So I don't necessarily get to hear all the celebration after, because I think they're all very shocked when I'm calling. And I try to, give them the information and then let them celebrate, or sometimes it's more emotional, or maybe some people are scared when they find out. It could be happy news, but it can also be scary news that you are the match, right? That's a big thing to take on, and there's a lot of pressure. So there can be a lot of emotions. So I try not to always, I don't assume that it's always going to be people like screaming in joy, because sometimes there's concerns, sometimes there's fear. So that's why we're there to just support them through those emotions, because it's really normal to be scared, and it's normal to have doubts or questions. These are normal feelings. So I try to validate the feelings, because that's important as a patient, to feel validated and reassured. But, they're so thankful. Most people are very, very thankful and appreciative of their evaluation, the process, and how we communicate things to them, and how they're so involved in their evaluation. So I'm proud of that. And I just want to be there to support them and guide and mentor. And that's what we all do in the team. So we take pride in that, and making sure that everyone feels comfortable. Even, the day before, if there's questions or concerns, I say just call, email, message us, and we will respond to you with anything. And even after the surgery, there's a lot of things that come up, or questions. And sometimes people just need a little reassurance, right? Because there's a lot of anxiety after you've gone through a major surgery. The mind and body take time to adjust. So people will have increased anxiety and maybe feel frustrated some days, or elated some days, and it can vary. So we are always here to, be that support for them, and make sure that they know that they're not alone, and all these things are very normal.
Yeah, can you talk to me a little bit about that post-op and the post-care?
I feel like it's an adjustment period. Like any major life event, there is a letdown phase, whether that be a death, a wedding, a baby, a marathon. You're planning and planning, and then it kind of all goes away. And that's hard. So, because there's maybe more questions after about the recipient, or how everything's going on that side of things. And I do feel for the donors, because it is a lot. There's a lot that, as you were saying, like the appointments, the constant communication with the team. And then there's a bit of a loss after, because you don't have that. You're not communicating with us as much. The surgery's done. And it's a big emotional moment. And I haven't donated, but I can only imagine, you probably are reevaluating life in a different way, reevaluating your relationships. So we really have our psychosocial team involved in donors, so social work, and then we have a psychosocial nurse who's trained in, obviously psychology and supporting donors through this process. And we have follow-up with those team members as well that's available. And we also have availability for our psychiatrist lead to myself and my colleague. We will always call the donors around 2 weeks after. They're still in the thick of recovery. So we want to check in on them, see how they're coping, and make sure that they're okay. I always recommend that they volunteer if they're interested in sharing their experience, mentoring, journaling. All these things can help. The mind, right? It's powerful. So you have to really take care of the emotional aspect as well.
And that's a great point, because through this process, a lot of us are focusing so much on our physical bodies, of what they can accomplish and what we can get done. And we often leave that section out, right? You've met so many incredible people through this journey. Are there any specific stories that might stand out to you in your last 5 years here? Or even
Yeah,
before, that's okay too.
There's probably so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have a very special place in my heart for postpartum mothers donating to their children. I find it just remarkable, and so difficult to watch them go through the pain of a sick baby, and then being the donor, and then having to care for their child and be the caretaker. It's just that really, yeah, it touches a chord for me. But they're the bravest. I find they're so brave, and they just go back to being a mother. And I'm like, women and mothers are just remarkable. But it's not, there's so many different people that I've had such great experiences with. The anonymous donors are obviously very interesting, and how they want to help others who they haven't even met, and go through a major surgery. That is phenomenal. We've had colleagues donate to each other, spouses, love stories. Like I love beautiful love stories. When you see
Yes.
it, like, oh, that's so wonderful.
Mhm.
People who've donated to a childhood friend who they haven't spoken to in like 20 years. Couples, like people who've recently been married and then had to donate to someone in their family, chose to donate to someone in their family, and basically their honeymoon is here at Toronto General. So just remarkable things, people putting their life on hold for months, you know, losing weight, changing their lifestyle so they can donate. All the battles that people go through to be a donor is a lot. So it's all those stories that just impact you to keep doing the best job, being the best coordinator, so you can have the best results for everybody. It's quite remarkable.
You know, when we think about the system in Canada, we just recently had Nova Scotia adopt presumed consent, hoping that that will increase the amount of donors. At UHN, we've talked a lot about the incredible innovation that is being done behind the scenes to make more organs viable. But thinking about all of these things that come together and the work that's being done to come together to increase the amount of organs available for people, because as we know, again, the need outweighs the amount of organs that we have to support people. So in Canada, we lose somebody every 2 days because there's not enough organs. You're behind the scenes, you're doing all of this hard work. Do you have any ideas of things that could be done to help either more living liver donors step forward or more people understand the process of organ donation in general?
Yeah, I think it's everything that we're trying to do, and that the Living Organ Donation Center and you and your colleagues are doing, is just awareness is so impactful. So I think all the education sessions, the Leave the Marks campaign, all these things will help. Having the social media aspect to it has increased for sure. And just having conversations. And I think, you know, if me coming into this role didn't know a lot about living donation and I'm in healthcare, then obviously there is a lack of information. I know that there's a program where coordinators go speak to high school students about organ donation. So like changing the future, changing the concept of organ donation from a young age, I think will definitely be impactful. And some government changes, like you were mentioning in Nova Scotia, I think obviously that would be something very interesting, and I hope Ontario gets to that point. For a lot of people, they only learn about organ donation when someone they love is in need. So we have a lot of information about blood donating, so maybe increasing the awareness there as well through about organ donation would be helpful.
Now, you speak to donors on a daily basis. You're in it.
Yes.
When you speak to these donors, I'm wondering, are there any commonalities in the people that you see stepping forward to donate?
Well, they're obviously very selfless. They want good in the world, so that's amazing, because right now obviously we're seeing a lot of sadness in the world. So when my faith in humanity can get down, I think about all the donors and what they do and how they do it so almost like easily. It's just, I want, like, why wouldn't I help someone? Why wouldn't I save someone?
And Chantal, is there anything that you would want to tell your donors as a whole?
I think just never give up, but that we will always be taking care of you. We're here to help, and yeah, never give up hope, never lose hope. And yeah, miracles definitely do happen in this program for sure. And we're here to guide you along the way. So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Chantal, for joining us and for sharing all of your expertise. It's amazing to get an inside look behind the scenes from someone like you, and to get to hear your passion about what you do as well. And Kelsey, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your mom's journey. And everything that you went through to be a donor to your mom. You know, as a transplant recipient myself, I can't say thank you enough to you and all of the amazing donors who literally give us our lives back. Thank you for taking the time today and for everything you've done.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Living Transplant podcast. If you did, please leave us a review and share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to Living Transplant wherever you are listening today. If you have any ideas for podcast episodes, you can reach out to us at livingorgandonation@uhn.ca or on social at GiveLifeUHN. For more information about living organ donation, you can visit us at www.livingorgandonation.ca. Special thanks to Lead Podcasting for editing this episode and for production support. I'm your host, Candace Coughlin. Thanks for spending your time with us.